Some tractors shape the land. Others defy it entirely. They use rotating screw drums instead of wheels, two engines fused side by side, or cabins that vanish as the machines drive themselves. Every machine in this story really existed. They were built by pioneers, haunted by impossible terrain, or by inventors desperate to bridge the gap between tradition and new technology. The consequences of this bizarre engineering still ripple through farming today. Why did these radical designs appear, and what can they reveal about the future of innovation? In the early 1920s, a standard Fordson tractor rolled into the snowbound forests of the northern United States, transformed by a radical experiment. Instead of wheels or tracks, its rear axle carried two massive steel drums, each wrapped in a continuous spiral flange. These were not rollers, but giant rotating screws, designed to claw through deep snow and soft mud where ordinary tractors would vanish. The inventor, Joseph A. Cott, believed that by turning these helical drums, the machine could propel itself over drifts and bogs, floating where others sank. Patent drawings from the era show the mechanism in detail. The screws rotating as the axle turned, their flanges biting into snow and pushing the tractor forward. The effect was almost hypnotic, each drum spinning in opposite directions and carving twin furrows behind. Archival promotional films captured the snow motor climbing over logs, surging up banks, and plowing through timber camp clearings, its screw drums churning like giant augers. In slow motion, the machine seemed to hover above the landscape, defying the limits of conventional traction. Yet the promise of the screw-propelled Fordson came with hard limits. On packed surfaces, the screws rattled and slipped, wasting power and shaking the frame. The system excelled in deep, soft snow, but lost efficiency on hard ground where the flanges could not dig in. Operators reported fierce vibration and rapid wear, especially when the tractor strayed onto roads or frozen ruts. Despite these drawbacks, the spectacle of the snow motor left a lasting impression. Few original conversion kits survive, but the image of a tractor gliding on rotating screws remains one of the boldest visions of winter engineering, a testament to the willingness of early inventors to reinvent the very idea of propulsion when the land demanded it. In 1914, a new crawler tractor rolled out of Elmhurst, California, bearing a silhouette unlike anything seen in the fields before. The Best 30, built by C.L. Best Gas Traction Company, stood tall at the rear, its drive sprockets perched high above the tracks. This odd geometry gave the machine a pronounced arch. Farmers quickly dubbed it the humpback. While most early crawlers kept their drive wheels low and close to the ground, the Best 30's elevated sprockets forced the tracks to climb steeply up and over, creating that unmistakable profile. The humpback looked strange, and it worked differently. The reasoning behind this design was practical, as much as it was unusual. In orchards and vineyards, where soft earth and tangled roots bogged down ordinary tractors, keeping the drive components high meant less mud and dust grinding into gears and bearings. Tracks wrapped around the hump and flexed more easily over ruts and obstacles, spreading the tractor's weight across a broader surface. For smaller farms working tight rows, the compact crawler offered a promise of reliability, where steel-wheeled machines often struggled. Yet the humpback's peculiar form did not win over many buyers. Production records show the best 30 was built for only a single year, with sales trailing far behind more conventional rivals. Operators complained about tricky servicing and unfamiliar controls. The market, it seemed, was not ready for such a radical departure from the norm. Today, the best 30 survives mostly as a museum piece. A preserved example at the California Ag Museum draws curious glances from visitors. But the story does not end in obscurity. 60 years after the humpback's debut, Caterpillar's D-Series crawlers would adopt elevated drive sprockets as a standard feature, recognizing the same benefits Best had aimed for in 1914. What looked bizarre then proved to be a glimpse of the future, hidden in the hump of a forgotten orchard crawler. In the years after World War I, as tractors rattled into fields once ruled by teams of horses, some manufacturers faced a stubborn problem. The people meant to buy these machines still trusted reins more than steering wheels. Enter Rumeli line drive and Samson iron horse, two tractors that took the phrase mechanical horse almost literally. Instead of a familiar wheel or set of levers, these machines offered their operators long leather reins, real lines running from the driver's hands to a cluster of pivots and rods on the engine. The idea was simple. A farmer could stand or ride behind the implement, just as he had behind his horses, and control the engine's clutch and throttle with a tug or a slack of the reins. Pull both reins to slow or stop. Ease off to move ahead. No need to climb onto a high seat or learn a new set of motions. Period advertisements from the early 1920s promised a seamless transition. One read, "If you can drive a team, you can drive a Samson." For teamsters wary of change, the pitch was irresistible. Collectors today recall stories of old-timers who insisted the tractor felt like a pair of good geldings, just with a bit more noise. But the reality was less poetic. The rein system could control speed and stop the tractor, but steering still required a mechanical lever at the frame, and quick reactions were tricky when a machine of iron and gasoline lurched instead of trotted. The market life of these rein-controlled tractors was brief. Farmers who tried them often found the compromise awkward. Reins tangled, response lagged, and the sense of control never quite matched what they knew from a living team. By the mid-1920s, the industry moved on, retraining its customers rather than its machines. Today, the few surviving Rumeli, line drives, and Samson iron horses are prized by collectors as relics of empathy-driven engineering, a moment when the future wore the trappings of the past and the boundary between animal and engine was measured in leather lines stretched across a field. A single, towering drive wheel, balanced at the rear and flanked by a compact body with a pair of small front casters, makes the Mullen Universal Model D stand apart from any tractor of its era. Developed in the 1910s, this machine was not meant to pull implements in the traditional sense. Instead, the tractor itself became the backbone for tools. Plows, cultivators, and planters were bolted directly to the chassis, turning the machine into a moving platform that carried its implements through the field. The entire tractor could articulate, steering by pivoting the body rather than turning wheels, which allowed precise alignment over narrow crop rows. Single wheel and body placement defined its silhouette. Period brochures pitched the Mullen as a solution for row crop farmers seeking exactness in cultivation. Its unusual geometry was not just for show. The single rear wheel minimized soil disturbance and made tight maneuvers possible in crowded plots. The operator sat just ahead of the drive wheel, with an unobstructed view of the tools at work. Instead of trailing behind, the implements became part of the tractor's structure, producing a dense, almost insect-like silhouette when the machine was fully equipped. Precision and visibility were the selling points. The small team behind Mullen challenged the conventions of their time, convinced that accuracy mattered more than brute force. Their tool carrier concept anticipated later trends in row crop tractors, where central mounting and operator visibility became key design priorities. Yet the Model D struggled in the marketplace. Its radical appearance and unfamiliar controls left many farmers hesitant. Production numbers remain uncertain, and few, if any, surviving examples are documented today. Still, the idea of a tractor as a precision tool carrier, rather than a simple tow vehicle, foreshadowed the direction modern row crop machines would eventually follow. Innovation came before horsepower for the Mullen Universal, and it offers a clear glimpse of how farming experimentation looked before tractors were judged only by raw power. On a wind-swept field in England in the 1960s, two tractor bodies, each with its own diesel engine, sat joined nose to tail by a massive steel hinge. This was the Doe Triple D, an audacious answer to a simple problem. How do you double the pulling power before true four-wheel drive giants existed? Instead of waiting for manufacturers to catch up, contractors and engineers took matters into their own hands. They bolted two complete Fordson major tractors together, aligned the controls, and added a hydraulic pivot in the middle. The result looked like something out of a science fiction serial. 20 feet of blue and orange iron flexing at the waist as it turned, with two engines roaring in imperfect harmony. From the operator's high seat, the view stretched out over twin hoods and a web of linkages running between the frames. Each engine drove its own rear axle, and together they churned up the earth with four massive wheels. Articulated steering let the whole machine bend in the center, making tight turns possible in fields that would have bogged down a single tractor. The logic was straightforward. If one engine could not pull a heavy plow through sticky clay, two might do the job without waiting years for a purpose-built alternative. In practice, this brute force method delivered raw power and traction that ordinary tractors of the era could only dream of. But the reality of running a twin-engined monster was less forgiving. Every hour in the field meant twice the fuel, twice the oil, and twice the maintenance headaches. Keeping both engines synchronized was a constant worry, because if one lagged behind, gears and shafts suffered. Operators recall the challenge of starting both engines on cold mornings, then coaxing them to work together as the day wore on. Yet for some, the trade-off was worth it. Restorers today speak of the thrill when a Triple D comes back to life, its dual power plants thundering in unison, the articulated frame flexing as it drags a plow wider than most modern machines. Only a few dozen Doe Triple Ds survive, each a testament to a time when necessity drove farmers and engineers to fuse machines in pursuit of more power. Their legacy lives on in the articulated four-wheel drive tractors that soon followed, purpose-built and streamlined, but owing much to the wild ambition of those who doubled up when the fields demanded more. The Doe Triple D is not a design for the timid. It is a reminder that innovation sometimes comes from improvisation, and that engineers and farmers will try extreme solutions when the work leaves no other option. No steering wheel, no pedals, just two hand levers jutting up from the floor. That was the first impression for anyone climbing onto the Beaver GR-T6, a compact tractor from Japan's late 1970s wave of experimental machines. Instead of turning a wheel, the operator gripped both levers, each one controlling a side of the drivetrain. Push them forward, and the tractor rolled straight ahead. Ease one back, and that side slowed, the machine curving gently. Pull one lever back while pushing the other forward, and the Beaver would spin nearly in its own length, a maneuver that left conventional tractors stalled or stuck. The logic was simple: differential steering borrowed from crawlers and skid steer loaders, but scaled down for orchards, vineyards, and tight urban plots. Inside the transmission, each lever modulated the clutch and brake for its wheel, letting the operator feather turns or pivot quickly around obstacles. For experienced drivers, the system unlocked a kind of agility that felt almost playful. One collector who restored a GR-T6 from a crate of parts called it the go-kart of tractors. If you got the levers right, you could dance it around fence posts and tree trunks all day. But the learning curve was steep. Unlike a steering wheel, there was no center, no natural limit, just the operator's hands and reflexes. Newcomers found themselves overcorrecting, jerking one lever too far or not enough, sending the tractor lurching sideways or even spinning out on damp grass. The smallest mistake was instantly magnified, especially with a heavy implement in tow. For some, the challenge was part of the appeal. For others, it was simply too much. Production of the Beaver GR-T6 was limited, and only a handful survive in private sheds and museum corners. Yet the concept, independent control of each side and joystick agility, would later become standard in zero-turn mowers and compact construction equipment. The Beaver stands as proof that sometimes the most radical innovations in control are also the most demanding, rewarding only those willing to learn the very basics of how a machine moves through the land. In the mid-1990s, the world of vineyard tractors witnessed a spectacle that seemed to have rolled straight out of a science fiction film. On the floor of a German design fair, a narrow, egg-shaped machine caught the light, its body smooth and seamless, with not a single hard edge or exposed bolt. This was the Eicher Colani, a collaboration between Eicher, a respected Bavarian tractor maker, and Luigi Colani, the industrial designer renowned for his fascination with organic curves and futuristic forms. Colani had already left his mark on everything from sports cars to furniture, and he turned his attention to the vineyard, an environment where tradition typically shaped every bolt and bracket. The Colani tractor broke all conventions. Standing just over 1 meter wide, its compact chassis hugged the rows, while the shell, painted in bright white and blue, swept over the engine and the operator's seat like a protective cocoon. The design was about more than looks. Colani said the shape improved ergonomics and visibility, allowing the driver to work long hours between the vines with less fatigue. The shell, he argued, would keep dust and chemicals at bay and turn the act of farming into something almost glamorous. Yet for all its promise, the Colani tractor remained an outlier. Farmers at the show admired its daring style, but they questioned its purpose. Aerodynamics, after all, mattered little at vineyard speeds, and the shell made maintenance more complicated. Only a handful were ever built, and the model never entered mass production. Today, the Colani stands as a symbol of what happens when design leads the way. It is an agricultural sculpture that challenged the idea of what a tractor could look like. In its curves, some see the first hint of a future where the presence of the operator might be reconsidered altogether, opening the door to concepts that would do away with the driver entirely. In January 2020, Kubota unveiled a vision that seemed to break every rule of tractor design. The X-Tractor, officially called the Cross Tractor, stood on 4 independent rubber tracks, each able to pivot and adjust on its own. There was no cab, no seat, not even a steering wheel. Instead, a sleek orange shell swept low to the ground, its body shaped for aerodynamics and minimal drag. The X-Tractor moved entirely without a driver, guided by artificial intelligence, sensors, and satellite data. At its core, the machine was fully electric, running on a modular battery system designed for silent operation and zero emissions. Driverless was the word on every engineer's lip at the demonstration. Kubota engineers described the concept as a response to 2 converging pressures: the shrinking rural workforce and the need for sustainable, high-precision agriculture. In Japan, the average farmer is over 65, and the idea of a tractor that could work day and night, never tiring, carried real urgency. The 4-track layout was more than a stylistic choice. Each track could lift or lower independently, keeping the machine stable on hillsides and in muddy rice paddies. The artificial intelligence system, trained on field maps and crop data, planned routes, adjusted speed, and coordinated with other machines in a fleet, promising a future where autonomous tractors manage entire farms with minimal human oversight. The X-Tractor remains a prototype. No commercial models have reached the field. Public demonstrations and technical papers show a working reality, not science fiction. Some farmers and engineers question whether such radical autonomy will ever be widely accepted, or if the sight of a cabless, driverless machine will ever feel normal. Others saw the demonstrations as a glimpse of what is coming. A world where the boundary between machine and farmer blurs, and the definition of a tractor is rewritten. In the end, the question lingers. Will today's most bizarre tractor become tomorrow's new standard? That uncertainty, and the willingness to test radical ideas, is what pushes agricultural design forward towards a new future. Today, radical farm machines are more than curiosities. They are blueprints for tomorrow's challenges. As climate shifts and population rises, engineers around the world revisit strange ideas that were once dismissed as impossible. Every odd experiment leaves a trace in the field and in the lab. The next leap in agriculture may not look familiar until history reminds us it never does. Which bizarre tractor would you take for a spin?